Cleopatra's Curse, the tomb that vanished. For 2,000 years, she has been the embodiment of allure, power, and tragedy. The last pharaoh of Egypt, the woman who seduced Caesar and ruled Antony, we know her name, we know the drama of her life, we know the heartbreaking, defiant final act of her death. On the 10th of August, in the year 30 BCE, with the legions of Octavian at her gates, Cleopatra VII chose her ending. She dressed in her finest royal regalia, reclined upon her golden couch, and welcomed death. It's not as a captive to be paraded through the streets of Rome, but as a goddess returning to her ancestors. Welcome back to Whispered Chronicles, echoes of forgotten lore. The historical accounts are clear. Octavian himself, angered by her defiance, granted her a magnificent burial, interred alongside her beloved Mark Antony. And yet, of all the major figures in ancient history, only one remains completely lost to us. No markers, no sarcophagus, no great complex of pyramids or underground chambers. The tomb of Cleopatra is missing. We are left with the greatest unsolved archaeological mystery of the ancient world. Did the earth swallow her?
Ow.
Did the sea claim her? Or was her final resting place hidden with such cunning, such final defiance against Rome, that it has evaded every shovel, every sonar ping for 20 centuries? This is the story of that loss, the history that was buried, and the maverick archaeologists risking everything to find a tomb that could not only reveal unimaginable treasures, but rewrite the final chapter of the entire ancient world. To figure out why Cleopatra's tomb is missing, we have to start with how she died and what her final desperate wish was. As Octavian's army closed in, Cleopatra didn't just give up. She planned her ending with incredible detail. The Roman historian Plutarch gives us the biggest clues. He tells us that after Mark Antony's own dramatic suicide, Cleopatra got a promise from Octavian. She begged to be buried next to Antony. Octavian, maybe out of a grudging respect for their legendary love story, agreed. So, this is our first solid fact. Cleopatra and Mark Antony were buried together. The burial was probably handled by Cleopatra's own loyal servants, supervised by the victorious Roman soldiers. This wasn't some quick, disrespectful burial in the desert. Octavian needed to show the Egyptian people that he respected their last pharaoh, even as he was ending her entire dynasty. But this fact actually makes the search harder. Where exactly were they buried? The massive royal palace where she died is now mostly underwater, sunk beneath the waves of Alexandria's harbor. Early searches focused on these watery ruins, but centuries of earthquakes and shifting tides have made the area incredibly unstable and dangerous to explore. This led modern archaeologists to look somewhere else entirely. About 30 miles west of Alexandria, there's a site called Taposiris Magna. Now why there? Well, the site has a huge temple dedicated to Osiris, the Egyptian god of the afterlife, and Isis, the goddess Cleopatra often identified herself with. It was also a major ceremonial center during her reign. The most important clue is the architecture, which suggests it was built with royal money. The theory is incredible, that Cleopatra, knowing the Romans were coming, had a secret tomb prepared in advance. It would be a symbolic final resting place, far from the chaos of her capital city. This wasn't just a tomb. It was a final, defiant statement of love and power, carefully hidden from the Romans who desperately wanted to parade her through the streets of Rome, dead or alive. And it's at this remote, forgotten temple that a modern-day archaeologist has found a startling series of clues. And those clues point to something much darker and far more elaborate than anyone ever imagined. We're talking about a network of tunnels, hidden chambers, and evidence that suggests the tomb might be protected by ancient engineering. Archaeologists at Taposiris Magna have discovered a long tunnel carved deep into the bedrock beneath the temple. It's been called a geometric miracle, and it's unlike anything else found from that period. They've also found coins with Cleopatra's face on them and statues of her, which is a strong sign of her connection to this site. Inside the temple, they found shafts that lead down into the earth, some as deep as 35 meters. So these aren't just random holes. They lead to a series of interconnected chambers and flooded tunnels. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed what looks like a massive, undisturbed structure buried deep below the temple complex. Could this be it? The final resting place of the world's most famous queen. The lead archaeologist, Kathleen Martinez, believes so. She thinks Cleopatra didn't want to be found easily. She wanted her tomb to be a sacred mystery, a final puzzle for the world to solve. She imagines Cleopatra as a legal mind, a scholar who would have planned every single detail of her death and burial. So, the tomb isn't just lost. It might be intentionally hidden, protected by layers of symbolism and clever engineering. The water-filled tunnels could be a deliberate part of the design, meant to replicate the mythical underworld of Osiris and deter tomb robbers. The challenge now is to safely explore these flooded passages without destroying the very history they are trying to uncover. The search for Cleopatra's tomb isn't just about finding gold or treasure. It's about finding the final chapter of her story, a story that she herself wrote. It's a testament to a queen who controlled her life, her love, and even her legacy after death. The next dive, the next scan, could finally reveal the truth. What do you think? Is she hidden at Taposiris Magna? Or is her secret still safe somewhere beneath the waves of Alexandria? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Now, the established world of Egyptology scoffed at the idea. Traditional belief held that a pharaoh would never be buried inside a temple complex. Tombs were separate. But in 2005, a Dominican criminal defense lawyer named Kathleen Martinez arrived with a simple, yet profound hypothesis. Cleopatra, who identified herself as the reincarnation of the goddess Isis, would have chosen a burial site imbued with deep spiritual significance, and crucially, one that was outside Roman control. She believed this place was Taposiris Magna, the great tomb of Osiris. Martinez and her team began their painstaking search. The decades of skepticism began to crumble under the weight of solid, irrefutable evidence. They first discovered a vast necropolis containing 20 tombs of high-status nobles, suggesting the site was extremely important. They unearthed 337 coins bearing Cleopatra's image, and statues believed to represent both the queen and the goddess Isis. Perhaps most tantalizingly, they found mummies buried with golden tongues, an ancient ritual to ensure the deceased could speak to the god Osiris in the afterlife. But the real breakthrough that shocked the world came in two phases, revealing that Taposiris Magna was far more than a simple temple. In 2022, Martinez's team discovered something huge, a 4,300-foot-long tunnel carved deep into the limestone bedrock beneath the temple. Measuring over 6 feet tall and built with astonishing precision, hailed as a geometric miracle, this tunnel was an engineering marvel, an exact match for one of the greatest aqueducts of the ancient Greek world. This was not the work of a small religious outpost. Second, where did the tunnel lead? It pointed straight to the sea. Partnering with deep-sea explorer Bob Ballard, the man who found the Titanic, Martinez turned her focus underwater. Using advanced sonar, they mapped the submerged seabed and discovered the remains of a vast, long-lost ancient harbor, complete with columns, anchors, and massive stone blocks, all dating precisely to the Ptolemaic period. This changes everything. Taposiris Magna was not just a temple, it was a major protected maritime hub. The theory is that the tunnel was part of an integrated network that could have been used to ferry Cleopatra and Antony's body from the temple through the tunnel to a burial chamber placed in the protected ancient harbor, completely inaccessible to Roman patrols. This evidence, the Isis connection, the royal artifacts, the massive tunnel, and the secret port is compelling. But despite 2 decades of digging, the primary burial chamber remains elusive. And there are powerful reasons why this tomb continues to defy discovery. The evidence at Taposiris Magna is compelling, but the tomb remains elusive. For Dr. Martinez, the search is not merely a dig. It is a battle against the elements, historical forces, and even the established archaeological consensus. The greatest enemy on the northern Egyptian coast is water. The entire region is geologically unstable. Earthquakes in 365 AD and subsequent centuries caused massive parts of the ancient city of Alexandria, including the royal quarter, where many believe the tomb should beat to simply sink into the sea. This seismic activity has also affected Taposiris Magna, where the sea level is rising and the water table is constantly threatening to flood the deepest excavation points. Martinez's team must deploy industrial pumps constantly, fighting to keep the deep tunnels and shafts accessible. But the challenge is not just environmental, it is intellectual. The prevailing theory, still championed by many traditional Egyptologists, is that the tomb remains buried somewhere within the submerged royal quarter of Alexandria's harbor. Archaeologist Frank Gadio has spent decades searching the sunken ruins of the island of Anarhodos, where Cleopatra's palace stood. He found remnants of the palace, temples dedicated to Isis, and artifacts from her reign. This theory maintains that Cleopatra would never have moved her body far from the capital. The tomb is there, the thinking goes, simply too deep, too submerged, or too fragmented to be found. This is the core of the enigma. Taposiris Magna offers tantalizing clues, but no tomb. Alexandria offers compelling historical location, but only fragments. What if the final secret is that Cleopatra outsmarted everyone, not just the Romans? 8. What if the tomb was so deliberately disguised or built with such a powerful spiritual intention that it rejects discovery? The truth is, both sites, the submerged harbor and the tunnel-riddled temple, represent the pinnacle of modern archaeological effort. If the tomb of Cleopatra is ever found, it will be because of this relentless pursuit. The hunt for Cleopatra's tomb is not about gold. It is about validation. It is about the ability to rewrite a history that was shaped entirely by the victors in Rome. If the tomb is found at Taposiris Magna, it would be the greatest discovery in Egypt since the unearthing of Tutankhamun. But unlike Tut's tomb, Cleopatra's burial would be a time capsule of an entire civilization's collapse. The tomb would contain the bodies of the two most famous lovers in history, Mark Antony, the greatest general of Rome, and Cleopatra, the last true pharaoh. More importantly, it would contain their private papyri, their last possessions, and the true unvarnished story of their final days. The true Egyptian voice of the queen, silenced for 2 millennia, would finally be heard. Challenging the biases of Roman historians like Plutarch and Cassius Dio, the search continues. Plagued by water and opposition, but driven by the tantalizing possibility that the truth lies just beneath the next layer of limestone. It is a monument to defiance, planned with such cunning that it has survived the collapse of empires and the rise of oceans. The final resting place of Cleopatra is not merely a tomb. It is a prize of final, powerful echo of a queen who refused to be forgotten. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of history's greatest mysteries. I hope you'll continue to explore the silent parts of history with us. If this exploration of lost might and the hunt that followed grabbed your attention, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Whispered Chronicles, Echoes of Forgotten Lore, for more journeys into the past. Let us know in the comments below which other massive unsolved archaeological mysteries you think we should explore next. Till next time, stay curious, and as always, stay safe.